Alt-R.
And Betty, remember to unmute yourself if you want to talk to us.
Well, she's not muted right now. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute everybody and unmute Kathy. There we
Well,
go.
you don't want to hear me sing either, though.
Oh, we're singing?
That's true.
Okay.
Well, mute yourself then, Kathy.
Yeah, I will.
Oops. I gotta turn the, oh heck, where's
What?
I have it full screen, but I haven't shared the screen yet. I have to share the screen before I can. Yes, they can.
Oh.
I have to share the screen before I can share the computer some.
Oh, I didn't know two separate things.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Start
Now,
Start over.
once more with feeling.
Good morning. Get ready to raise the roof. Spirit is in this place. We have come together as a family. We have come here as we are. Yes. And we have come with arms wide open. We have gathered here in love. Ooh. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Let's sing it together. Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Raise the roof with shouts of praise. Spirit's in this place. We sing in celebration. We sing with words of prayer. We sing with words of prayer. We affirm our life as sacred. We declare that peace is here. Yeah, Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Ooh, Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Raise the roof with shouts of praise. Spirit's in this place. Ooh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ooh. Spirit is in this place. Let's sing it. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Raise a roof with shouts of praise. Raise a roof with shouts of praise. Spirit's in this place. Good morning. Bless you.
Good morning. And it's nice to know Spirit is in this place. It's in our homes. It's in each one of us. So we take a deep breath in. And I know right here and right now that there is only one infinite source of good, one peace, one power, one presence right where I am. I know this peace, this power, and this presence is divine, and it is all good. Spirit is in the seen and the unseen. It moves upon itself and chooses to manifest into form. And I am this movement of spirit. We are all God in form. We come from love. Love is who we are. We are the embodiment of love in this world. It wraps itself around us. It guides us. It protects us. It strengthens us. We are blessed beyond measure. We are perfect, whole, and complete, and worthy of every desire just because of who we are. Spirit and form, our divine light shines into the world. It shows up for us in radiant health, joy, and ease. It shows up in finances where money flows. Our relationships are supportive and harmonious and love-filled. Opportunities and freedom are opening up for our highest expansion and happiness. Peace and health surrounds our world. Equality for all is our new reality. We live our lives knowing we are loved and we are lovable and supported. Any thoughts that are unlike these words are dissolved. And I am so grateful to know the truth for and about each and every one here today. Grateful to know the truth that each of us is where God is showing up in the world. It fills my heart to live life surrounded and supported in love and light. Blessed to live in a world filled with peace, love, health, and joy. And I know this word is released into law to be acted upon into expression. I know it is already done in the mind of God. I claim it is good, and I claim it is all good. And I release this and let go and let God. And it is with joy that we all say together, and so it is. We do our identity prayer. I know that within myself, there is a life that is perfect, complete, and divine. It was never born, and it can never die. Before it lives, and it is God. Within myself is wholeness, peace, poise, and the power of life. This life is health, it is abundance, it is love. There is one life, and it is a life of God, and it is my life now, and so it is. Okay, enjoy.
Hello, I'm Linda Hall. Welcome to my series Meditation. Hello, I'm Linda Hall. Welcome to my series Meditations for Everyday Life. Today we focus on loving kindness. In your own time, allow your eyes to comfortably close. As you do so, allow your eyes to soften and rest. Allow your mind to sit back and soften, and to also rest in your head. Have a sense of coming down into your physical body, letting your body soften and sit back onto the support beneath it. Gently draw yourself back from where you lie scattered, back to this moment here, to the sensation of your breath ebbing and flowing, to the air touching the surface of your body, to the sounds around you, letting them sit back and soften. To the light and shade filtering through your closed eyelids. And as you give yourself time to settle, into pausing a while, to be with yourself, become aware of how you're feeling. It may make itself known in sensations or thought patterns or emotions. Allow what you notice to be there without judging. Notice with respect. Have a sense of stepping to one side and being aware of yourself and what you bring with you here to this moment. Welcoming all that you bring, not seeking to change it, letting yourself know that it's okay to be just as you are in this moment. Breathing into sensations, feelings, breathing into any resistances if they come. Letting yourself know that it's okay to be exactly as you are in this moment. Holding yourself with respect, for there is good reason to be how you are, in every way that you are, right now. And imagine, sense, putting a kind arm around yourself as someone would you, or as you would someone that you love and give kindness to. A warm arm of kindness surrounding you. Allow yourself to lean back into the warmth of this support. Let the kindness surround the whole of you. Allow yourself to soften into it. And as you sit with yourself, surrounded by the warmth of kindness and respect, as you breathe with whatever wants to surface within you. You can also place the warm arm of kindness around that, letting it soften. And know that this moment accepts you totally as you are. It demands nothing of you. It asks nothing from you. And allow yourself to lean back into the support and the loving kindness of the present moment. Know that you are special. That you have worth. That you are unique. And allow yourself just to be as you are, in kindness, for a moment or two. Become aware of what happens when you hold yourself with loving kindness. And when you're ready, you can draw this meditation to a close. Opening your eyes in your own time and maintaining that sense of holding yourself with respect and kindness and being surrounded by the warmth of loving kindness. I hope you've enjoyed this meditation. Goodbye.
I am as God created me. I am a light in this world. I am as God created me. I am, I am, I am. I am as God created me. I am a light in this world. I am as God created me. I am, I am, I am.
Nice. This is Reverend Bonnie Smith from CSL and La Cruces in New Mexico. It's a powerful, powerful presentation.
Kathy, I didn't get the time from you on it, so I cut it down to just her message.
Oh, okay. You could start, I'm sorry, it's 7:16. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, that was a reading. There's a reading there before. Oh, I'm sorry. 7:16 to 9:48 is a reading. If you didn't do it, that's all right. You could start at 13:50.
Yeah, I think it's 13:50 and it goes to 45:33.
47:09.
Okay.
1350 to 4709.
To 40.
4708, that's fine.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Bonnie, the community spiritual leader here at the Center for Spiritual Living in the heart of Las Cruces, and I'm so grateful to have you all joining us this morning. I think by now most of you have heard that my son took his life on August 7th, this last month. And if this is the first you're hearing of it, I'm sorry that this is how you're finding out. So you might be wondering why I'm standing here speaking in front of you already. But I have to tell you that about a week after this occurred, I had a message come through me that said it needs to be said, it needs to be spoken, so that's why I'm here. When I got this horrible, unbelievable news, it came after several hours of knowing that he was missing and not responding to his phone. And during those hours, his other mother and I had been praying, sending love, talking to him in our mind's eye about the love that he had for his sons and that they had for him and that we had for him. Eventually, I had called practitioner Lilianne and asked her for a prayer. It was 9 o'clock at night and I hadn't even had dinner. And after the prayer, I had felt calmer and had fixed some food when the phone call came. After that phone call, I was absorbed in the love of practitioner Teresa and Lilianne as they responded so quickly to what happened. We didn't post on Facebook to tell all of his friends right away. We were making personal calls to family and the people we felt needed to know from us personally first. But once we did post it on Facebook, the messages that flooded in were filled with how much people loved him and how much people felt loved by him. It was hard to imagine that anyone could have been more loved or loving. In fact, after days and days of reading these messages that kept coming in, I started to think that this big, over 300-pound black man could have walked on water. He was so loved and loving. That and the fact that we teach that love heals all things. In fact, Ernest Holmes says, love is the grandest healing and drawing power on earth. It is the very reason for our being. So with all of this love, I kept thinking, what happened? Why wasn't this situation healed? Why wasn't love enough? In fact, as I sat there on my couch, I kept saying, I feel betrayed by love. And Lilianne would remind me that more would be revealed. In my last few talks, I've spoken about the tools that I grab in moments, not even like these, but in moments that have been difficult in my life, the tools that are spiritual tools that I grab during tough times. This time, I will admit, I just sort of sat there in spiritual and emotional shock, mostly reading the messages that were coming through on Facebook. And again, I'm so grateful to the practitioners, Teresa and Lilianne, for being there and just propping me up during this experience. As I sat there, I kept pondering, how could someone so loved and so loving do this to himself? And then it dawned on me. I remembered the book that I read just a month prior at the death of my little dog, Tara. The book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And at the time, I'd wondered about the title and thought, well, why do we need to love ourselves like our life depends on it? Well, now I realized because it does. On the full spectrum of love, of giving love out to others and receiving love in from others, somewhere on that spectrum, somewhere in the middle, has to be self-love. I realized that mantra that I got from the book, I love myself, that I had started back when Tara passed, really helped protect me during this experience. After starting that practice and grieving over Tara so much, I felt wrung out, like I didn't have any more grief to give. It was like there was a vast expanse of nothingness. But like in a tsunami, when all that water pulls out, eventually that wave comes rushing in, and the waves of grief eventually did start to come through. And that mantra, I love myself, is how I kept my head above water at this time. And more continued to be revealed. I realized that Ben didn't have this. He didn't have that kind of mantra. He knew that to give out love would help bring love back into his life, but the love that kept trying to get in wasn't being received. Somehow he didn't believe in his own worthiness. This month's topic, 50 Shades of Faith. As I thought about that topic sitting back then, I thought, how in the world, once again, I was struck with this idea, how am I going to sit here and address this to all of you? I felt like my faith had been completely shook because my faith had been in love, and love for me is synonymous for God. I felt like my faith had been rocked completely. I'd lost my faith in myself and my faith in love. And as I sat there with all these feelings going on, all of a sudden those words of Ernest Holmes popped into my head. We don't need to just have faith in God. We need to have the faith of God. So if God is synonymous with love, that means we need to have the faith of love. So I want you to hear the difference in those phrases. Take a moment to see how they might feel different within you. When I started contemplating this, I felt a difference in the resonance. Feeling and knowing and having faith in God or in love, and the faith of God, of love. Ernest Holmes talks about love in the Science of Mind text on page 478. Love is the central flame of the universe, nigh the very fire itself. It is written that God is love, and that we are its expressed likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-givingness through creation, the impartation of the divine through the human. The faith of love is us in our oneness with God, experiencing that love and letting it move through us. So as I let this idea settle in, something in me shifted. The faith of love would still be love. The faith of love would forgive all circumstances. In fact, circumstances wouldn't even matter anymore. They stopped mattering. The faith of love is purely love being love. And that love continues whether a body is present or not. I felt this love of God, and I felt this faith of love as it seeped into who I was. And it cycled me back to this idea of where that kind of love can come from, and I believe it comes from self-love. And I'm not talking about narcissism. I totally believe if you see narcissistic behaviors in someone, it's because they don't love themselves. They're trying to get the love from out there to fill up that space inside. And they want to make it all about them because they don't love themselves. I'm talking about something deeper and different. That's that filling up of oneself with love. So the Saturday a week later after this event happened, I had been asked by Reverend Dr. Daiho Harvey Hilbert to join him and Reverend XK from the Universal Unitarian Church here in town on their local radio station, KTAL, for the program Take on Faith. As the week progressed, I realized I wasn't ready to be interviewed on the radio. So thankfully, practitioner and our board president, Bob Greer, stepped in my place. So even though I wasn't there for the interview, I did listen in to the interview. And Reverend XK said that faith is trusting without evidence. And I think that's why this month we're calling it 50 Shades of Faith, because there's faith in all different ways. We use that term, we think about it in many different ways. There's blind faith. There's the faith in God that I was talking about, or faith in something else or someone else. And then there's our faith practices. Reverend XK also said that we use our faith practices to shore up what we do in the world. And then there's the faith, the way Ernest Holmes describes it in the glossary in the back of the Science of Mind text, and it echoes what Reverend XK was saying. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And then there's this idea of faith that to me was a new idea that Ernest Holmes was bringing forward from an old teaching. When Jesus explained to his disciples that they had failed to heal because of a lack of faith, they protested that they did have faith in God. Jesus explained to them that this was insufficient, that they must have the faith of God. The faith of God is very different from the faith in God. The faith of God is God. And somewhere along the line of our spiritual evolution, this transition will gradually take place where we shall cease having faith in and have the faith of. I believe that the faith of God has its deep and strong roots in self-love. When Ben was an infant and I brought him home, I tried to carry him as much as possible. I rocked him to sleep so he didn't have to cry himself to sleep. He rarely cried as a child because I wanted to meet those needs and make him feel safe and loved in the world. I wanted to make up for not carrying him for those 9 months in my womb or those first few months that he was in foster care. I now believe that inside every one of us is a space that no amount of outside coming in from friends and relationships, no amount of outside offerings of love, no amount of parental or familial love can fill that space. That space is the last piece in the puzzle. It's the keystone that holds up our whole life experience and the love that we experience. And that space is reserved for self-love. I cannot love you enough to fill that space. If I could love enough to fill that space in someone, my son would still be here. That space is reserved for us to fill up in ourselves. So as more was revealed, I came to realize that this bigger than life man filled with laughter and hugs and expressions of love and outward caring was masking an empty space for self-love. I found a form that he had filled out as he was applying for college. And in that form, it asked what his greatest weakness was. And he said he felt his greatest weakness was putting other people's needs ahead of his own. That was echoed by his partner, who said over the last 6 months he'd been taking care of the kids at home. He'd been taking care of her because she had to work outside of the home. He had been taking care of some friends and helping them. He'd been taking care of issues at work, and that he had put off taking care of some issues that he had within himself. So the message that came through loud and clear to me that I'm bringing to you this morning is the importance of taking care of ourselves, of self-love. I implore all of you that hear my voice or are reading this in captions to consider loving yourself as if your life depends on it, because it does. And if you can, read that little book. I want to make sure that that book needs a second and third and fourth printing. I've already bought 10 copies. I have 6 people designated for some of those copies, and I have 4 left. If you would like one, let me know, and if we need to buy more copies, we will. I would love to see each and every one of us starting a conscious self-love practice. This book doesn't teach a religion. It's not a religious philosophy. It's all about self-love. It gives mantras and meditations for how to build a greater sense of self-love. And since my son's death, I have been seeing and hearing things that help me to realize that this is a crucial necessity right now for many people. Since my son's death, I have found myself wanting to go up to every large black man I see and just look him in the eye and say, your life matters. It's like I want to knock on that door and fill it with love. And yet I realize I can't do this for another person. I also have listened and noticed and heard from other people in our community that have shared their feelings with me that there's a lack of self-love even within our community. One person shared with me that every time she sees a picture of herself, she starts getting critical of what she sees in the picture. And I suggested that she start just saying to herself when she looks at a picture, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Another person said they hadn't seen any posts from me on Facebook for a while, and they assumed I'd unfriended them. They'd assumed something had happened that I was upset with them, as opposed to assuming that it was my grief that was keeping me from posting. To me, that's a sign of a need for more self-love. I love myself. I love myself. And then within me, I was listening to all the woulda, shoulda, couldas, all the different ways that I was thinking and people around him were thinking, if I'd only done this, I wish I'd done that, I wish we'd said this. And I realized that none of that was going to change the situation. So as soon as those thoughts would start to come into my mind, I would go back to my mantra, I love myself, and cut off those thoughts around woulda, coulda, shouldas. So had I been betrayed by love? No. I think love was knocking at the door. There was just no one there to open the door and let it in. In my house, I have a needlework that's by the front door, and it says, fear knocked, love answered, no one was there. And in the Christian scriptures, Matthew 7:7, it says, knock and the door shall be opened to you. But I think it's the reverse. I think that God, love, is knocking on the door in us that opens up to that place of self-love. And it's knocking and knocking. And it's up to us to open that door and welcome love or self-love in. So my new thought, and another mantra I've been doing, is when love knocks on the door, open it. I want to take a moment here to just pause and encourage you, ask you, invite you to just go within and consider your life and let love reveal to you all the different places it's been knocking on that door in you. Where has love tried to get in? Where have you kept the door shut to love and to self-love? Just take a moment to consider that. What would stop us from letting love in? Why wouldn't we open the door if we knew love was knocking on the other side? Well, I thought about, when don't we let people into our own home? When don't we want them to come in? Usually when the place is a mess and we're ashamed of it and we don't want anyone to see it. Well, it's the same. When we have shame and guilt, we tend to block love from coming in. We don't want to open the door. I realized that as a mother, I hadn't shared some of my past with Ben. I hadn't shared with him some of the things that I felt ashamed about in my past and some of the decisions I'd made in my younger days, 20s and 30s. I hadn't shared this with him. What I wanted to share with him were good examples, things that I wanted him to exemplify in his life. And I realized as a mother and as a minister, I want to share the good examples. I don't want to open myself up and share the stuff that I'm ashamed of. And yet, I had learned in 12-step programs the importance of what we refer to as the fourth and fifth step. In the fourth step, we take a moral and fearless inventory of ourselves. That often means digging up and looking at that stuff that we're ashamed of, that we might feel guilty about. And then the fifth step, we admit to God and to ourselves and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. When I was first introduced to the 12 steps, and especially to these two as I was working with a sponsor, I wondered, why are we doing this? Why do we want to dig up all this stuff that we feel shame about or that we feel guilty about? And why would we want to tell it to another person? And what I learned through that experience is after I shared this stuff, this person was still sitting there in front of me. She was still loving me. She still wanted to see me grow and heal. I couldn't scare her off with all this stuff that I felt shame about. And I think that is the lesson, that we can expose that and we can still be loved. Without a way to unload shame, it builds up inside us. It gets shrouded in silence. And it reminded me of a saying that was out there back in the 80s. You might remember posters. They were black. They had a hot pink triangle in the middle, and underneath it said, "Silence equals death." That phrase came back to mind as I thought about my son's death. And it has a new meaning to me now. There's a different kind of silence that creates death today. And there's also a different silence around the way someone dies. The silence that's created from shame can equal death. I'm not talking about the kind of silence that we want to go into so we can listen to that still small voice inside. That kind of silence is healing. That's where healing can take place. I'm talking about the silence that we wrap around our shame to try and protect ourselves, and yet that lets that shame grow and fester. I was speaking to another member of our congregation and sharing some of this with her, and she told me about a book called "I Don't Want to Talk About It: Overcoming the Secret Legacy of Male Depression." She was saying that what I was describing in my son was a perfect example of how this book is saying men and women express depression differently. And I had first sort of been made aware of this idea in Ben's life when, after about 3 or 4 days of reading messages that were being posted, one of his friends from college mentioned that she knew he'd been depressed in college. So I messaged her on the side and I said, "Do you mind sharing more about that?" She said, well, they had talked about it, and she believed that because he couldn't figure out a reason for feeling depressed, he felt ashamed to have those feelings, and therefore didn't ask for help because he didn't know what to tell somebody. He didn't have a reason to have these depressed feelings. Another one of his friends said this on his page: "The fact that someone with that much love in them can become convinced that the world is better off without them tells us that suicidality is as poisonous and insidious as a tumor." And the reason she put that on there is she wanted to encourage us to consider what happens in the medical field and how we treat mental health compared to physical health. Today, I think we seek out practitioners for prayer, we seek out medical doctors for help physically, but when it comes to mental health, there's still that shroud of silence. There's shame. We don't tend to ask for the help sometimes that we need. And she was saying that we need to treat the two things equally, mental health and physical health, and take away the shame related to getting the assistance that we need. As Lillian had said, more was being revealed. In addition to learning about the depression that he had experienced and how it was outpicturing differently in males than it does in females from what I read in this book, I also learned that there's silence around the way someone dies. During the days after Ben's passing, Lillian and I were sitting there in my house receiving food and flowers and gifts and cards and messages, and we were both stunned at the numbers of stories that were being shared with us around how other people's lives have been touched by suicide, how other people had family members who had died by suicide. My niece sent a friend of hers who she'd done mission work with to bring me flowers and a gift and a hug from my niece. And as this woman hugged me, she said, "My brother died by suicide." A neighbor brought food, comfort food, and a note with the food said that she also had a family member who died by suicide. Other people in the congregation messaged me on the side and said their son, another family member, had died by suicide. I had never heard this much before, and I realized how much silence is around this issue. Other people shared their attempts or their contemplation related to suicide. And then I reflected on how I've done 3 memorials out of the few that I've done in the last several years were for families whose members had died by suicide and their home churches refused to do a service. That's where that shame comes in, and the silence around how death happens. So, silence equals death has really taken on a new meaning for me. I hope and pray that you don't allow shame to eat you up inside while putting on this beautiful outward perfect life expression. Remember that Ernest Holmes has taught us the universe holds nothing against us. There's a whole section in the Science of Mind text starting on page 470. The universe holds nothing against us. And we can begin to feel that truth when we open that door to love and when we start to have the faith of love. And if it feels impossible to open that door, if it feels like that's just not within reach, I really hope and pray that you either break the silence around whatever shame it is you're feeling and ask for help, or at least start to read one of the books that I've mentioned. And I want to assure all of you that I am also getting help. In Albuquerque, they have a trauma team that does volunteer work for anyone who's experienced a trauma. So I've been gifted 6 free EMDR sessions, and I've already had 2, and they help immensely. I've also, of course, been journaling and reading some of these resources that I've been sharing with you, and doing a lot of talking with friends and family. I have been consistently called daily and checked in on. So I want you to know that I am doing my very best to open that door in me that will let in self-love. And yet it's also been made very clear to me how difficult this is. A few days ago, there was a thing that came across Facebook, and it said, normalize telling your friends you love them, tell them a lot, make it weird. I thought, well, that's pretty fun. Let's repost it. So I reposted it thinking I was suggesting that people would tell their friends they love them. Well, what happened is I got message after message after message back to me telling me that people loved me. I realized at that moment that this certainly wasn't my intention. It wasn't what I expected, and I saw how hard it was to take that in. I'm still working on this, and I just encourage us all to work on it together. So back to the radio station, Take on Faith, that program. Reverend Harvey stated that he believes science is about what is, and religion is about what ought to be. And he asked Bob what he thought was the bridge between what is and what ought to be. In other words, what's the bridge between religion and science? And as he asked that question, I was sitting there listening, a thought popped into my head. I thought about the name of what it is we teach, religious science, the two things together. And I thought the name had the answer to that question. Essentially, what is ought to be, and what ought to be is. And I thought about that response in my own head, and then I realized how hard that is to swallow. And I just wanted to scream, no, that can't be possible. How could a loved and loving individual cut his own life short and have this be what is? And yet I realized it is what is. And then how could I take what is and say that it ought to be? And yet I realized that that is the truth, and that the only way that this would have had a different outcome is if he had allowed love in, if he had a stronger sense of self-love. That was the only piece of love that was missing in his life. Last week, Helen Wright, Unity's ministerial coordinator, told us how Myrtle Fillmore, founder of Unity, spoke healing words to her body in order to heal, loving her body on a daily basis. And she outlined 5 stages of self-healing. And to me, part of self-love is self-healing. The first step was know the truth, who you are. I am God, I am love expressing in the world. The second step is cleanse your thoughts. Break the silence around guilt and shame and clean those thoughts out of your mind. The third step was use your creative power. Use prayer and treatment, get help as you're guided to be creative in whatever way. The fourth step, remember that health is your natural state, and I would say that includes mental health. That physical and mental health is our natural state of being in the world. And the fifth step, realize oneness. And as we realize oneness, this means not that we have love in God or in love, but we have the faith of God, the faith of love. So I believe that the best way to honor my son's life and his legacy would be if all of us could increase our levels of self-love. That would keep love alive. As we learn to love ourselves, we break that silence, shed the shame and guilt, make amends where necessary. We are silent no more. This may not have been the most uplifting talk I've ever given. I know this topic has been a hard one. But I believe that if it inspires even one person to uplift the level of self-care and self-love that they have, if one person starts the self-love practice, if one person hearing this talk is saved from crossing over prematurely to the other side, then I hope you'll join me in knowing that breaking the silence, opening the door to self-love, opening the door to experiencing the faith of love is worth it. And so it is. So just take a moment and breathe and take this thought, these ideas, this teaching that wanted so badly to come through, and just breathe it into your heart space. Again, allow yourself to see that space within you that is yours to fill with love for yourself. See the door. See the possibility of opening that door and letting love flood in, the love of who you truly are. See that love of God expressing in and through you, filling you up, guiding you to whatever is the next step in a greater expression of self-love and healing in this world. I give thanks for all these lessons. I give thanks for the awarenesses and the knowingness that comes through as I open myself to Spirit's movement in my life. And I see the same for each and every one of you. I give thanks for love and its constant knocking at the door. I give thanks for all of us who would work and allow ourselves to open that door and receive. I know that these words are spoken in truth. They go out now and resonate in the hearts of everyone who's heard these words. And I hear us in my mind's eye saying together, and so it is.
You are a work of art, a brilliant light for all to see, perfect in every part, heaven and earth in harmony. The beauty of your face reveals a life of grace. You are a work of art, a masterpiece. You are a work of art, a brilliant light for all to see, perfect in every part, heaven and earth in harmony. The beauty of your face reveals a life of grace. You are a work of art, a masterpiece. I am a work of art, a brilliant light for all to see, perfect in every part, heaven and earth in harmony. The beauty of my face reveals a life of grace. I am a work of art, a masterpiece. We are a work of art, a brilliant light for all to see, perfect in every part, heaven and earth in harmony. The beauty of our face reveals a life of grace. We are a work of art, a masterpiece. We are a work of art, a masterpiece.
That was a beautiful song, wasn't it? Thank you, Jane, for finding that. I know it was kind of a heavy subject, but it was a good subject. And it amazes me how many people are touched by suicide. I know when I was in school for practitioner school, it just blew my mind how many people had something touch their lives with this. And Deepa Chopra has a new committee or a new program. It's called Love in Action, and it's all about handling young suicide. And every 40 seconds, a young person commits suicide. That's mind-blowing. Every 40 seconds. So,
Kathy, did you say that was Deepak?
yeah,
Okay,
it's called Love in Action.
thank you.
Yeah. And it's global. It's a global movement.
It's funny that this should be the topic today because I spoke with someone yesterday who had gotten a serious diagnosis, and he said, I'm thinking of ending it all.
Yeah. Yeah, they talk about the silence of suicide, the silence of shame, the silence of depression. It's so popular, and with all this going on in the world today, it's prevalent, and it needs to be dealt with, or have empathy, or just to help somebody, and just even what she was saying, I thought it was such a powerful message today that we need to unload the shame we're feeling. And people don't know the reason why they're depressed. And that's so frustrating.
You know, when I was a teenager, I got really sick when I was 16. And we went through several doctors and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And I could take a bite of food and then be in terrible pain from that. And so I lost a lot of weight. And since nobody could figure out what was going on, I was in constant pain. And I thought about suicide. But then again, even though I was raised Baptist, and I don't know where I got the notion. I believed in reincarnation, and I thought, I don't want to have to go through this again, so I'll just endure it right now. You know, get it over with, and then I won't have to go through this again.
Yeah.
And so I stuck it out. We found a doctor that figured out what was wrong with me. But you know, you're talking about silent
Yeah.
suicide, and some people I've had in the past, until I was woken up to the fact that I was doing this, had this mental attitude of, this isn't worthwhile, this isn't worth being here, you know, this is just a trudgery, this is, you know, just,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because we go to a intuition circle on Monday nights, and my grandfather came through, who I had never met. You know, he died way before I was born. He died when my dad was 4 years old. And he was telling Pam, who was leading the circle, that he didn't mean to die. He had a mental attitude that contributed to it. And I kept thinking about that afterwards. And I thought, why did he show up and why did he say this? And I realized he was telling me that I have the same mental attitude, and that the same thing would happen to me if I didn't change my attitude.
Now, is that the grandfather that was?
Yeah, that's the grandfather that was killed.
So
fell off.
he didn't commit suicide, but he
But,
died
yeah, so
violently.
Yeah, you don't have to commit suicide to die. You have to have that mental, you know, what you think about comes about type of thing. And so, you know, if you think, yeah, I don't want to be here, you know, I don't, you know, this isn't worthwhile, and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, you'll find a way out.
Whatever you put energy into gets bigger, and if the energy that you're putting into life is that life is
Difficult, hard, not
difficult,
worth it.
not worth it, and
Not worth the struggle.
You're essentially saying that you don't want the life that you have, then you're putting energy into things happening, whether you do it yourself or it happens, you know, by happenstance.
Yeah.
Then, you know, something comes to pass that you come to pass.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to her grandfather. He was, had gone into town to get some lumber and was riding home on this wagon cart being pulled by a horse, and a train went over. They were going under a bridge, and the train went over the bridge and spooked the horse, and so the horse took off running,
and he fell off the wagon.
He fell off the wagon and got run over.
Ooh.
No.
Wow. But like as she was saying, it's not, self-love is something, you can't give it to anybody, you know, you have to get it yourself, and that's so frustrating for all members of your family and everybody that love you. You know, it's such a frustrating thing that you can't give, like someone can't take the love in, you know?
I think we're kind of taught that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And from the time we're small, we're taught of being, you know, we're not supposed to.
Yeah, don't be selfish.
Yeah.
Don't have a big head.
Don't have a big head. But the fact of the matter is, you really can't love someone else until you love yourself.
Yeah.
When I was learning EFT, that's one thing that we ran across, that we were taught that you'll run across, is that when you do this karate chop and you say these phrases like, even though I have this back pain, I still deeply and completely love and accept myself. They said that there's some people that just can't get those words out. I do completely love and accept myself.
Right. And like what Betty was saying, I know my mom, everybody came before her. I mean, that's just the way it was, you know, she was like the last person,
Yeah.
you know, and it's hard. When I was growing up, I saw that in her, and I didn't like that, you know, I didn't like that. So, and I'm a lot like it, but I try not to be, you know, I'm aware of it. She wasn't aware of it at all, you know? So,
She talked about, I make the distinction between religion and spirituality. And this is something that I wrote in my first book that, because as I see it, religion is, while religion is about spiritual matters, religion in and of itself is not spiritual.
no,
Religion is about control, power, and fear.
yeah,
And so that's why I make the distinction. It's a little confusing when you start talking about religious science, for instance. But I think the difference there is that in Ernest Holmes' time, the word religion and spirituality were kind of synonymous. But in my world, at least, they're not synonymous. They are talking about two different things. And the important thing to understand is that while religion addresses spiritual things, religion is not spiritual.
right. Yeah,
It's actually a worldly thing. It's
Yeah.
a good introduction to that which is spiritual, but at some point it becomes a stumbling block.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And she
Well,
was,
I had two good ideas for topics for my YouTube stream coming out of this.
ah, that's good.
So I'm doing a YouTube, a weekly YouTube stream on. I've titled it "Living with the Law." Basically, it's about understanding and using the law of attraction in your life. And the two ideas were loving yourself, and to give some techniques on that, how to learn to love yourself. And then another one on self-healing, the idea that Myrtle Fillmore used of basically expressing love and gratitude to your own body, because if you're kind of being angry at your own body all the time, then you're going to manifest disease in your body.
Yeah. Well, she did, just to reiterate, her self-healing things, the four of them that she was talking about was, the first one was to know the truth, to know you are God in form and God is in you, and to clean up your thoughts. And that goes back to what you think happens in your life.
Yeah.
And to use prayer techniques, treat yourself, have other people treat for you. And to remember, health is natural. It is what we are. We are healthy. That is our birthright.
There's a good analogy for that. The concept that our natural state is health, which implies that for us to have something other than good health, there's something driving it. There's something pushing your body out of equilibrium so that it is manifesting dis-ease. And as a pilot, it reminded me of an airplane that, generally speaking, now there are some airplanes that don't do this, but generally speaking, an airplane, if you'll just leave the thing alone, it'll fly itself. So when you see an airplane, when an airplane gets into a unusual attitude, or something's happening that it's not flying right, if you just get off of the controls and let it fly itself, generally speaking, it will ride itself. It may do a little bit of up and down until it settles out, but for the most part, it will stabilize and fly itself. If an airplane is in a spin, you just kind of let go of the controls and it'll pull itself out of the spin.
Yeah.
If it's going into a stall, you just let go of quit forcing it, and it'll fly itself.
Yeah.
As long as
So
there's
it's-
no mechanical failure.
Yeah, as long as there's not a mechanical failure, but you know, the point there being that it's kind of like if you apply that thought to your own body, if you quit forcing it, then it'll take care of itself.
Mm. Yeah.
So, do you have a pilot's license?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have the
It's
disease.
amazing how many people I have run into who have actually either were at one time pilots or still are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a disease,
there's
Betty.
a desire, I think, for us to be like the birds, to get up there and fly.
Yeah,
No, I didn't have a pilot's license myself, but I flew with John's son,
yeah,
and he was a good pilot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Betty, it's a disease. It's like a drug habit. It's expensive, and you're always planning your next trip.
yeah, it's very expensive. Yeah, but I'm glad I got a chance to actually fly in a small plane with John.
They're fun.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. But it was surprising how many people I know can fly that or have done it and maybe are no longer doing it. But yeah, yeah, interesting.
Mm.
I'll probably mute myself before I start making static. Okay.
Yeah. So the other topic that goes with that I think is important is to be aware of the signs of depression to help someone else. You know, I know in my own personal life, um, I've had this experience a few times with people, and I was lucky enough to see it and get them help. And that's important. That if you can't do it, to just help find someone else that can. But it's so rampant, especially in young people.
Mhm.
So just to be aware of that is important.
Well, and I mean, not that that it would go to the extremes, but depression is a natural part of the grieving process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually short-lived. It's because of an event. It's
Yeah.
different than chronic depression.
Yeah,
But it goes hand in hand with all the drug problems today with the young kids. They can't, they have, they need a way to unload the shame, as she said, So it just goes from one thing into another problem. And it
Yeah.
all
They
comes
can't,
down to the self-love.
they can't see that the future can be different.
Right, right. So, but
well,
I thought it was a powerful message. I thought she was a great speaker. And it came from her heart.
Yeah. Well, actually, depression is not part of the grieving process because, okay, I had the infamous year, 1990. I had 5 aunts and uncles that died. Both my parents died. My future father-in-law died. I got married. That was a high point of the year.
That was lumped in
I
together.
sold my house the first day I listed it, and I had to move twice, and I quit my job. And so it's, every month there's something really major happened.
Yeah.
And
or several.
so things went along, and about 3 years later, all of a sudden I think it all hit, and
Yeah.
I got really depressed.
Yeah.
And I took a class that was offered at our Methodist church on grieving, and I asked the guy that was leaving the class, well, is depression part of grieving? And because I knew I was depressed. And he said, well, what he had been told was that depression was unrecognized anger, suppressed anger. And I thought, oh, I don't feel angry at anybody, but that's because it's suppressed, you don't know. And so Paul hooked me up with a psychologist, which I probably would have done better just going to a bar and talking to a bartender, but I enjoyed it more. But I started working on myself, and I got some books out, and I started going through these workbooks. And one was about your inner child.
Yeah.
And when I got to a portion that said to write a letter to somebody that you're angry with, and I was like, I'm not angry with anybody. But my dad popped up in my mind and said, well, I'll just write a letter to him. Boy, was I angry. I didn't realize it, I couldn't write fast enough, so I just started talking to him. And, after that, it was like this weight lifted. And I did, 5 loads of laundry, I mopped the floor, went for a walk, I had all this energy all of a sudden, no more depression. So it was really interesting.
It's interesting. She didn't see it, but I did.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I got into Science of Mind. If you really get into this and work it and live it, you can change. You can change your thinking. It's such a powerful thing if you live it, if you get it. And it's not an easy, it's not, a 1 minute thing. It's a constant thing, but it is, you're God informed. So how could you be depressed if you really get that, So that's the major thing I loved about it, really. It helps you move out of the low points in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I observed some really disgusting behavior not too long ago. And I thought, I'm judging these people.
Mm.
I can't stand to see what's going on, but yet God loves them.
Right.
I thought, oh, I'm going to leave. I can't, this is too much.
Good one.
Yeah.
Sylvia, that was when my brother passed. That was what convinced me that there really is no such thing as hell.
Mm.
And what convinced me about that was that I realized that if I loved my brother, which I did, and it so happened that he was a good person, but I realized that I loved him regardless of him being a good person or not. And, if I could love him, how could God not love him? And so that's kind of what really started me on a journey of what was she calling it? Loving like God, not loving or not trusting in God, but trusting
Faith
like
of
God.
God. The faith of God. The faith
The faith
of God.
not faith in God, but the faith of God.
Yeah.
That's what really got me started on that, was just this realization that, because before my brother passed, I was, pretty much an agnostic, almost to the point of atheist. I figured, when I died, then that was it. That, this annihilation. And I found that I was able to accept that for myself, but I was not able to accept it for my brother.
Yeah.
And so that's, that really became the beginning. It's not really the beginning of my journey, but it was kind of the beginning of being diligent and conscious about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
So I'll jump in on anger. And feel like, and I probably said this in the group, but I learned to rage, especially playing football. and to do it on command. And when I was 20 and my father died suddenly, and I felt I lost my purpose in life because it was to be perceived as worthwhile by him. And he had disappeared. And so I just had an all-out war with God. And found, of course, I was rebuffed in all of my efforts to dominate or reject God. And so the anger habit that I had learned, playing off of what we're all capable of, just the self-protective intensity and growling, gnashing of teeth, that training was really driving me. And had I not met Claire and had kids, I know I would have died. I was suicidal. Speaking of suicidal, I mean, I had a shotgun in my mouth. I was at that point. And somehow, here I am. And the anger that I know is, that was how I won all the time. I could win at anything because I would eat more pain.
Yeah.
I didn't care, and learning to, let the pain dissolve in my heart rather than eating it and fueling with it, but just letting it go. That's, I guess, my lesson of anger.
Bob, I've always found that anger is built on a foundation of fear.
Sure.
So what were you afraid of?
Oh, I think she said it in her talk, that she felt like she had lost her relationship with love.
Right. Well, with God.
Yeah, or God.
So
Yeah.
Your method of fulfilling your need for love was through your dad, who was no longer available. So you felt like that the tap, if you will, that love comes out of was turned off, and you would not be able to get that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the lesson has been that I'm the spigot. I get to turn it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that enables you to do what you do.
That's right. Thank you for sharing that. You've come a long way too, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I have.
We're glad.
I know that, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I coincidentally yesterday was invited into a family who experienced a suicide. A young woman, mother. And this same lesson of anger, is witnessing the anger that was in the room, as well as all the different ways of touching were there. Thank you all for being available.
Yeah. It touches the lives of many people, and we don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's a silence. It is a silence. And I'm going to buy that book that she was suggesting, Love Yourself Like Life Depends on It. I'm going to buy that book. That sounds really like a good book to have.
I'm going to buy several copies of that, Kathy. So you want to go in and we'll get a bunch together?
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that and see how many. I'll look and see where it is and what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think I'd like a copy.
Okay.
Yeah,
With-
and if you
with
buy them
all
on
the,
Amazon, we can get some of the money back.
That's right.
with all the CSL community buying that book, all of a sudden they'll make the bestseller list. And that could be a good thing.
Yeah.
If books make the bestseller list, then it's like if they make the bestseller list, then that makes them sell even more.
More.
Yeah.
Well, I have found that living alone brings up some things that don't come up when you're living in a house full of people. You know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's the things that come up are not always all that wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the mind. It's your mind, and you're in control of your mind. So you can change that chatter. You just need something else to replace it.
I'm gonna mute myself again.
Yeah. I'm just saying, Betty, I know what you're thinking of, and it's like it's the same with the science of mind principles. If you can change your thought, change your mind, change the thought, have something else to replace it. When it's a negative, you just need that couple of seconds to realize what you're thinking and saying, and then replace it with a positive. And that really does help.
Yeah. Pay attention to your there's a song that says that. What's the song, Jane?
That says
Pay
what
attention.
now?
Huh?
Change
That
it.
says what?
There's some song that says pay attention to what you're thinking.
Oh, our thoughts are prayers.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one.
And
I
we are
know the
all
tune, but I couldn't think of the words. Yeah.
And James Brown says you got to get down before you can get up.
Our thoughts are prayers.
Well, okay. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. I think it's an important subject to touch, and just a couple of other information going on. We have a International Day of Peace coming up on September 21st, and this is the United Nations does this Day of Peace, and it is on the 21st, and we were thinking of doing a meditation. CSL and a lot of the different centers are doing a collective prayer and a collective meditation. And it's about maybe 15 minutes long. So we might get together on a Zoom and just do a meditation for peace that day. I will send out some emails on it. And again, it is a global International Day of Prayer, which is kind of cool. We'll be meditating with the world at the same time. So that's the 21st. And also, Deepa Chopra is coming up with a class, and it came out from CSL headquarters, and it's called Total Meditation. And I'm not sure if I sent it to you. It was on the same thing as that interview that he had on Friday. But he has a new book, and it's called Total Meditation. And he's giving a class online, and it is on October the 5th, and it's from 8 to 9:30 at night. And it is a cost of $40, and they send you the copy of his book for that $40. And he does a message, and he does a meditation. So I'm going to send it out also. It's the practices in living an awakened life is what it's called. And it's live, and you do get the book with that. So I'll send that information out also. And as I was saying before, God bless you. Yeah, he has a new program out. It's called Love in Action, and it's calling in, it's raising your consciousness and raising the community awareness to the suicides. So you could go on neveralone.love, and that's the website for that, neveralone.love. So that's a good thing to get involved in also. And next Sunday, we're having Dr. Michael Rogan that taught the Buddhist. He's going to teach mindfulness to us next Sunday, but it's going to be at 1 p.m. because they have, he has his own group in the morning. So I'll be sending out a notice about that. So that's on mindfulness. Let's see, I think that's it. I think that's all my announcements. We're still working on the teaching chapter. We're trying to we need letters of recommendation, and still waiting on that to get to the second step.
We have the name
Yeah,
application thing done. I don't know if you sent it in yet, but the person that leads the committee that makes the decision on that was on vacation the week that they would normally have met. So we're looking at next month
right,
before they would approve it.
yeah. So, anybody else have anything going on? Anybody need some support or any prayers or anything? You could,
We need a prayer for those who are anticipating ending their life.
right. Yes. Yes, we do. We can keep them or anybody in any state of depression.
Yes.
You know, we can be active in this with our own little group, people who aren't on, who don't show up for the, for our group meetings on Sunday. And we just, if we find ourselves wondering where they are, I suggest we reach out to them. It doesn't have to just be you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Anybody that you think of that's not here, that that you miss, or kind of wonder what's up with them. Let's reach out and stay close for each other and supportive for each other in all these crazy times.
Yeah, good idea, Jane.
And it's hard when you live by yourself in this time too. You don't get to see people and you are by yourself. So it is, it is nice to receive a call from somebody, because some people don't get to talk to anybody all day. So that is good too. And I'm going to find out more about Deepra's group, and I'll let you know more information about that. Maybe we could get involved with something like that too.
And Kathy, the video that we watched today, that's available. I could send that to this family.
Oh, yes,
YouTube.
yes. If you want, I'll send you, it's on our webpage, but I will email you the direct link.
Okay. Well,
Or Bob, you could send them to our website, because Paul's recording the whole thing.
Yeah,
But if you just wanted, her talk,
yeah, I think the talk is, at this point, they're so sensitive. So
Yeah.
right. I'll say it's on YouTube. I'll send you the link. Okay, any other information or anything?
you are love.
And thank
well,
you.
I've been feeling loved all the way through this, all the way through our service, because every time somebody wishes me happy birthday on Facebook, it kind of pops up on the top of my screen.
Happy birthday, Jane.
That's right. Happy birthday. We love you, and we're so glad you're in our group.
Me too.
Okay, I'll do a closing prayer, and then we'll do our blessed always. And again, if anybody needs any prayers or special help, just give me a call. Okay, so I know we're all special and we're all unique, and we are all God informed. And this week we live our lives wrapped in faith of God, faith of love, and we fill ourselves up with this love, knowing we are supported and loved. And we can remind ourselves of the mantra, I love myself just the way I am, and we are a masterpiece. So we take that with us this week, and we spread that word, and we enjoy our week, and we stay healthy and happy. And thank you all for coming. So we'll do our Jane will send us off with her beautiful voice.
I'm going to mute everybody and unmute Jane. Maybe.
There we go. Right. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen once more. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Blessed always.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your week. God bless you. Namaste. Bye-bye.